Welcome to Universal's Islands of Adventure, the theme park that will set the standard for all theme parks to come in the 21st century. This is probably the greatest combination of characters and thrill rides and attractions ever made. So let me take you for a quick walk through. The park itself is about 100 acres, located immediately south to Universal Studios, Florida. It's located right on the waterway that connects the entire entertainment resort, all the hotels, the City Walk, Universal Studios, Florida, and this is the waterway that connects down here. So as you come across from the parking garage through City Walk, you'll be walking straight up to a point right about here where presumably you've already made your decision on where you're going, and you're either going to go to Islands of Adventure or to Universal Studios, Florida. So we'll take you over to Islands of Adventure. You'll come over this bridge, and as you walk over the bridge, you'll sort of get the sense of this waterway having been here for some great period of time, and that is suggested by this very ancient rockwork along the face of this thing. And as you're walking in here, you see this giant lighthouse, so you start to get the image that this waterway was a place where all these previous explorers and adventurers would have come in their boats and would have docked their boats and offloaded their supplies into this big plaza on their way to this fantasy adventure. So as you get deeper into this and this story kind of unfolds, this plaza then is anchored by this lighthouse, and the lighthouse became a really important element for us. We were really focused on coming up with a visual icon, an architectural statement that really suggested travel and adventure and exploration. And as we bounced around all the different forms of what architecture would help tell that story, we kept coming back to the lighthouse. But then we started saying to ourselves, we can't just be any lighthouse, you know, it has to be a lighthouse that is really magical. And we did all the research. We must have looked at every single lighthouse ever made, and we kept coming back to this one that no one really knew much about. It's called the Pharaoh's Lighthouse, located in Alexandria, Egypt, built in 350 BC. And it had fallen in an earthquake that occurred sometime in the early BCs. And no one ever really had any documentation of it outside of some coins and some etchings that were done. So we zoomed right in on that guy because it had this wonderful fire on top of it. And the fire was said to be seen in some of the old travel logs from some 20 miles out at sea. So this started becoming really a great story. And so we zoomed in on that as an inspiration for our lighthouse. And that's kind of what you see here. It's not really a redo of that one, but it's inspired by that. Funny story on that is that subsequently in 1994, a group of French explorers actually found the lighthouse off the coast of Alexandria. It had never been found before. And they hoisted up all these great artifacts from there. So we zoomed in on the lighthouse. This will have a 15-foot flame on top of it that'll burn as a beacon. And as people start to arrive in here, we'll gather people up in the forecourt of the plaza. And then right before opening, the music will be building, the theme for Islands of Adventure will be building up. And right outside this portal right here, our adventurer will come out with a torch in their hand. The music will build. They'll say a few words welcoming people, and she'll start to climb this stair. And this stair is only about 2 feet wide and goes up 150 feet. It's about 300 steps. And this guy or girl is going to run up this thing carrying the torch, a little bit of a page out of the Olympic book. And as the music kind of builds, it'll crescendo and it'll get halfway up there and almost fall off this thing and barely grab back on. We'll light the torch, the gates will open, and we'll get people inside to pick up their passport to adventure, which happens right underneath these ancient old junk sails, the old Chinese junk boats. These are sails from those junk boats, and you can imagine that those sails may have been from one of the ships that traveled this waterway in search of the Islands of Adventure. So the sails are over the passport area. Our customs agents will take your passport, stamp your passport, and you'll be on your way. All those buildings right inside there are places where you'll pick up all your provisions for the day's adventure. You can get your film, you get your hat, your rain slicker, backpack, and whatever. That happens all in these buildings. You can get strollers. All guest services are there, group sales and all those things. So you'll pick up all your provisions, and now you're ready to go. And that little archway that's located right here and is part of the stone wall that you can see from the plaza, and it wraps all the way around the plaza, and you're continually reminded of that as you walk around this way. But the archway that's located up here, that's right here, incised across this concrete face are the words etched into that thing that say the adventure begins. And you walk underneath that portal and work your way down this street, and this street has a really wonderful kind of geometry to it. It's not just a straight axial street. It has a geometry to it that sets up your vistas as you walk around. And the first thing you come to is this, what we call a mysterious machine. And that mysterious machine is pumping water out of the ground. So you can imagine that this mysterious machine would have been a place where this civilization and these groups of civilizations would have come to get their water and bring it back here. And it would have become, the water would have been a source of supply for their adventure. So you wind your way down, and the architecture now is getting very eclectic. Asian influences, Caribbean influences, Dutch, French, colonial influence architecture all the way down, African. And you work your way all the way down to the back portal, which is this piece back here. And as you come to that back portal, it frames up this view. And as you pass through that portal, this whole vista opens up of all the islands of adventure. Now, all of a sudden, all that stuff you've heard about, the magical islands, the Dr. Seuss, the Lost Continent, Jurassic Park, Marvel Universe, and Toon, all that explodes out in front of you. And you see each of these islands coming down and touching the water and gracefully sitting on the water. And so as you look around, on this side, you see the kind of magic and fantasy of Dr. Seuss's world. And as you pan around that side, you zoom in on this giant rocky grotto edge of the Lost Continent. And directly across from there is this lush tropical environment for Jurassic Park. And featured in the center of Jurassic Park, of course, is the Discovery Center, right from the movie. And adjacent to that is this kind of wacky and funky Toon Lagoon, this dock edge. And then next to that, floating above the water, is the Marvel Universe, this big, powerful, explosive Marvel Universe. So I'll take you around to the right here. We turn right, we pick up some breakfast supplies and everything else on these edge buildings right here. We turn right and we go into Seuss Landing. And so we cross through the portal of Seuss Landing. We see the Green Eggs and Ham Cafe, where of course we can stop for a morning green eggs and ham breakfast. Next to that is a little interactive area called If I Ran the Zoo, and it's based on a story about Gerald McGrew and how he's gone to the zoo many times, and now he realizes if he ran the zoo, this is what his zoo would be like. So you kind of go through the whole story of what Gerald's zoo would look like, and it's wonderful interactive characters and little play environments, slides, and things like that. Adjacent to that is the Carousel, and this is the world's first interactive carousel. And by that we mean it's a place where not only do you have the magic of being able to sit on one of Dr. Seuss's characters and ride it around the carousel, but you can interact with the character that you're on. So when you pull the character's reins, his ears flap, or his tail wags, or his eyes blink, or you look and his head turns. And on all those 60 characters, each one of them has an interactive element. Across the way from that, underneath a 45-foot high cat's hat, the red and white striped hat, is the entrance to the Cat in the Hat ride. And this is a dark ride where you sit on a couch and you ride through page and verse of the entire book of the Cat in the Hat. And we've kind of added some things to that to make that adventure a little more visceral. The vehicle spins around and you encounter thing one and thing two who are ransacking the house. The cat's totally destroyed the place. Of course, mom is out and you're there. And you ride through all the scenes of the book, and ultimately you come to the end of the book, and thing one, thing two escape in preparation for the next adventure. And you find your way at the close of the book with the message from Dr. Seuss. So what would you tell your mother when she came back? And you exit out through a little retail store and a little courtyard there where you can see some of the other Seuss characters in the courtyard. Working your way out from there, adjacent to that, right in this little spot here, is the round ride called One Fish, Two Fish, Red Fish, Blue Fish. And on that ride, it's a ride where you'll get onto one of the fish and you'll ride around. And in this case, you get to listen to a poem as you're riding around in that environment. And you need to follow the poem, because if you don't follow the poem, the bad fish on the outside are spitting water in. So when the poem tells you to go up high, you better go up high, or you're going to go right into a stream of water that's coming out and going to zap you. So you have an opportunity to get pretty wet. Adjacent to that is the Circus McGurkus Cafe Stupendous. And this is a cafe, a big restaurant. Inside it is a circus environment where there's a trapeze artist and there's all these Seussian characters flying around in there. You sit inside little circus train cars, and that's just a wonderful restaurant experience. Across the street from that is a little ice cream shop called Hop on Pop. And then you're down to this street right here, which we call Mulberry Street. from the book, from the Mulberry Street book. It's a retail shop and a couple little food items. There's Moose Goose, Juice Goose over here. There's a bookstore, a candy store, and a place to get your picture taken, kind of like we do at ET, where you get in a frame with some of the Seuss characters in this case. On the second floor is, on top here, is a ride we call Sylvester McBean's Amazing Driving Machines. And that's this little purple line you see running all the way around here. It's about 3,000 foot of elevated track. Each one of them is about 3,000 foot, and there's two of them. So you can get in this vehicle. It's a two-seat, two-passenger vehicle, and you can ride around on two entirely different tracks all the way around the Seuss environment in a vehicle that goes about 10 feet per second, from 3 feet per second to 10 feet per second. You control the speed, you control the horn, you control the lights, and you control all those things. And you can ram the guys in front of you that aren't going that fast. Now, mind you, you're about 15 feet above the ground, so this is going to be a kind of fun little thrill ride for the family. And while you're doing all that, there's show scenes that you go through. There's about 6 different show scenes that you go through as you ride through this environment. And ultimately, you come through and it's all the story of the star on and the star off and the Sneetches. And you ultimately get that whole story unfolded to you as you go through these different show scenes and interact with the different environments. So down along the edge of of Seuss Landing is Sneetch Beach, and there are just a bunch of characters out here. The landscape is all specifically tailored to Seuss, and it's colorful. It's all sculpted landscape. We've gone and purchased most of this landscape, and we've started to topiary this landscape so that it grows in the forms that we want it to grow. We come across the bridge from Seuss, and we're into the Lost Continent. We go over this drawbridge here. It's a big, heavy wooden drawbridge, and we go over that drawbridge, and we're looking at this rocky grotto mountainous edge here that's all crystalline and blue and has kind of turquoise in it, and it's just going to be wonderfully painted. And as you come through this thing, the first thing you see is this giant trident sticking out of the ground, which is right here. And the next thing that you kind of unfold is you realize that there's this giant head of a statue. And you look over just past the head and you see the feet from the statue that would have been standing there. And you quickly realize that that statue probably would have been 150 feet tall when he was in place. And the other thing you start to realize pretty quickly is that the reason he's fallen is there's been an earthquake. The ground is completely shifted, and you see the waters flowing out from here all the way into the lagoon, and you look past those feet and you realize that the building is completely fractured. So quickly you discover that this is the entrance and the only entrance to discover the escape from the lost city. So what we do in here is we bring you into an archaeological site that many people have gone through before. You work your way around this archaeological site, and eventually, you're seeing all this, all these wall carvings and all this stuff that's happening on the walls, and you ultimately come to this chamber. And in this chamber, you hear the snoring of this kind of grumbling old snoring sound, and from up above a little plinth, this old dude wakes up, and he comes down, he looks at you, and he's like, another group of people trying to find this lost temple. So he tells you this whole story about how it's virtually impossible. A lot of people have come before you. He's been down here for a couple thousand years. You're never going to find it. And all of a sudden, this big voiceover comes, and this oracle speaks. And the oracle's voice tells the keeper that, "Keeper, you finally found the chosen people." And so now you realize you're in for it. And as she tells the keeper that you can bring these people forward, they're the chosen ones, the wall opens up. It'd be like a wall, like the size of this wall over here. The wall just opens up, and it's really going to be a very cool effect. The wall opens up, and through that wall, there's this spinning vortex of water. And something that none of us, I happen to have seen it already because we built it, but it's going to be a really wonderful effect. It's a misty vortex of water, and it's actually literally water spinning around that you'll be beckoned through, and it'll kind of encourage you to come through that water. And that water slopes down and brings you down to this lost temple. And as you pass through the water, you enter into this gigantic temple. And the temple looks like it's in a bit of disrepair. You're really the first people that have been there in quite some time. And all of a sudden, this giant image of Poseidon appears. And Poseidon says, "Thank you for coming. I'm glad someone has finally made it through." Quickly, the story unfolds that Poseidon is really after you to solicit you to becoming some more of his underwater soldiers in his attempt to take over the lost worlds. And and defeat his arch nemesis, Zeus. And so all of a sudden, Zeus pops up and he says, no way, Poseidon. The big battle breaks out. Now you're standing with about 200 people in a very tight ring, totally surrounded by water in this giant temple. And I mean, it's a giant temple. It's 60 feet high and about 100 feet around. And you're standing in this gigantic space. Poseidon pops up. He's this gigantic image. Zeus pops up. They start fighting with each other across. They're throwing rockets. They're throwing stuff back and forth through this environment. There's fire, water, everything's going crazy. Finally, Poseidon is kind of getting the best of Zeus, and Zeus barely takes the moment to, in looking after our best interest, finally turns around and he says, I got to get you back to the surface before you're all destroyed in this temple. This temple's crumbling, water's filling up, your platform is all getting kind of shaky. And Zeus finally turns around and says, and back to, magically casts a spell and blows us back to the surface. And we literally get back to the room that we started in a split second. We're transformed back to the room that we first met this oracle. Happens in like 2 seconds, and it's really like big magic. This is making a group of 200 people disappear from the place they're in back to a place they started. We'll come outside of this building and we'll pass by a little retail opportunity here to pick up a memento from that harrowing experience. Across the way from the Escape from the Lost City is this giant rock form, and inside that giant rock form is our feature restaurant for the entire park. This is the full-service sit-down dining experience. We call it Mythos. And inside Mythos, you'll discover the story of a place where all these lost civilizations and ancient peoples would come to observe the magic of natural phenomenon. So this is where people would gather to see the alignment of the stars, the position of the sun, the rains, the winds, and we'd capture all of that in a magical experience inside this restaurant. So during your dining experience, you'll get to witness what happens when some of this magic occurs. When the stars align, they'll shoot this colorful rainbow through the space. You'll hear the wind, you'll see rain come into the building. All these different magical natural phenomenon events occur during your dining experience at Mythos. All has views out onto the lagoon, so it'll be a great place to come at night for dinner, watch the lagoon show. There's a VIP section, about a 60-seat VIP section within this restaurant as well, that also looks out onto the lagoon. Outside of there, we go through the Lost Continent is kind of an interesting place because it's really 3 neighborhoods that are all combined on one island. And the neighborhood I just described to you is adjacent to an area that is based on the story of Sinbad and 1001 Nights. And this is really a totally different environment, totally different color palette, different landscape, and everything else, and separated by from this area by a landscape portal, kind of a transition and a decompression from this zone into the next. And when you go into the Sinbad area, this is like a Middle Eastern souk. It's a very active environment. It's kind of like a festive bazaar type market. And you go into there, this is where all our skill games are, all the pitch and skill games. Each one of them in this case is themed to the Sinbad theme. So we have crossbow shooting, you'll be able to throw swords, you'll be able to catapult things and stuff like that. And it's all really in foreground to that big theater that's right over here. That's a 2,000-seat auditorium that will host the show, The Eighth Voyage of Sinbad. And in The Eighth Voyage of Sinbad, we encounter Sinbad and his sidekick Kebab, who have been lured into this graveyard of lost ships to discover some treasures. So as they come into this thing, all of a sudden they encounter this princess. They hear this voiceover of this princess, "Come forward, Sinbad," one of those things. And as they come into this space, the princess pops up. There's a couple things that happen. The princess pops up onto this area, and she talks to Sinbad. Sinbad says, "Oh, Princess Allura is her name." And so he goes to approach Princess Allura, and she says, "No, Sinbad, stand back. I'm under a spell." And as Sinbad approaches her, this giant flame wraps around the Princess Allura. Big 16-foot-high flame wraps around the Princess Allura and throws Sinbad back. And she says, "Don't try to approach me. I've been possessed by the evil Miseria." So Sinbad makes another attempt at that. bunch of things kind of unfold. This is a stunt show, sort of comedic drama stunt show. And ultimately, Sinbad is able to get to Allura. The evil Mizria appears. She's this giant, wicked witch of the West. She appears, and they get into a big battle between Sinbad and the Princess Allura and Kebab on one side, Mizria and her henchmen on the other side, and they fight it out, and all kinds of great fun stunt events happen. Ultimately, of course, good overcomes evil. Sinbad and the princess kiss and are happily ever after, and the Mizria is destroyed, at least temporarily, until the next show. 2,000 people come charging out of that. They energize this whole environment, and they work their way through another portal, landscape portal, into an area that we call Merlin Wood. And this is the whole story of Merlin and dragons and that whole alchemy sort of experience. You come through that landscape transition, and the first thing you see is this giant oak tree. And if you remember the story of Merlin, Merlin was frozen into the oak tree by the Lady of the Lake. You go into that oak tree, and this is really a great restaurant. It has a bar called the Alchemy Bar next door to it. It's a very voluminous space. You're inside the trunk of a tree, and it's a barbecue restaurant, open cooking and all that kind of stuff. So it'll have a really great atmosphere. And adjacent inside the restaurant is the Alchemy Bar, and this is the only place on earth where you'll be able to get a mug of Dragon Scale Ale, our own beer, and you'll have your dining experience in here. Merlin will make an appearance in here occasionally and perform magic acts. And you work your way out of that restaurant, and across the way you're facing these two giant dragon sculptures that form the gateway to the dueling dragons. And you come through that portal, which actually is not on this model. You come through that portal and you wind your way across here, and you're looking at this giant spaghetti bowl of these intertwined roller coasters. The Dueling Dragons is the first time this has ever been done. This is a state-of-the-art suspended coaster. You're probably familiar with suspended coasters. You sit in a seat and your feet hang down. We've taken two of these state-of-the-art coasters and we've woven them together with the intent of creating near misses at very high speeds. So what we do here is we set up the story about this castle, and this castle has been overtaken by these two evil dragons, the Dragon of Ice and the Dragon of Fire. And you wander your way into the castle, and you encounter Merlin, who is kind of this mysterious-looking character who comes up and he tells you, "You fools, you should not have come this far, but now that you're here, you must choose between the Dragon of Ice and the Dragon of Fire, and you must slay the dragon in order to overcome his evil." So you pick your destiny, and you're either going to ride the Dragon of Ice and Dragon of Fire, two totally different roller coaster rides, both wound together. You get onto your dragon. Oh, I'm sorry, I left one thing out. As you come past Merlin, you come into this big space, and you see on the wall is this projection of these two dragons kind of sparring with each other. And it's a shadow projection. You see in the shadow of these two dragons, and they're striking at each other like this. And as you get closer up, the two dragons come down and morph into the actual dragon coaster, which have just pulled into the load area. And the coaster itself is a likeness of those two dragons. So now you got these two dragons, ice and fire, staring each other down. You get onto the dragon, and the dragons take off, and you go up the load. And that's that lift right there is the red and blue lines going up. That lift takes you to 150 feet above the ground. And on the way up, it's weighing you and measuring you to make sure that we can ensure that when you drop, you're going to come back together at the points we want you to come back together. It's very technologically complicated, and I won't get into it. But anyway, you drop off the top of this lift at 150 feet, and you peel off in opposite directions. So, the average person is just going to think, well, here I go on my ride. You peel off in those opposite directions. You come around, and the first thing that happens is right there, the fire dragon will come over the top, and if my fingers are feet, that dragon will come over the top, and the blue dragon comes under and passes right past, perpendicular, like that, to the fire dragon within 1 foot of each other. And you're at that time doing about, because you're going uphill, we're probably only doing about 45 miles an hour within our feet, 1 foot of the other feet. You peel back off, you go in totally opposite directions. The ice dragon does a boomerang over here, and the fire dragon does an outside loop, or an outside inversion. And now you're coming straight at each other at about 50 miles an hour, and you pass each other like this in a loop, double inversion. That happens right there where you see the coasters. you peel back off from each other, you come back around, and you go into a double helix where both coasters come right at each other and weave together right there. And all those events are on axes with this entrance. So you can stand out here and watch this amazing thing take place. It's really a great ride, about 2.5 minutes long. And there are 4 or 5 inversions on each of the coasters. So coaster enthusiasts are going to jump off one of those dragons and jump right back in and ride the other one, you know. And presumably everybody's going to be a coaster enthusiast when they get done with this. So we'll come out of here and we'll work our way across a bridge. And this little suspension bridge will take us through a landscape transition. Now we're going from this kind of hardwood of the Black Forest into this lush tropical environment of palm trees and Jurassic Park. And as we wind through this area right here, we'll encounter the big portal from the film Jurassic Park. Pass through that portal, and on our right, on our left side right here is a little drink stand where we will serve cocktails. This is the home of the Lounge Lizard, the place to get a drink, and there's a great little logo for that restaurant. Right here is the Discovery Center. In the Discovery Center, there are really 3 things. There's a restaurant, a shop, and an interactive experience called the Discovery Center. Across the way from the Discovery Center is the Pizza Predatoria. That's a joke, by the way, Pizza Predatoria. It's a pizza place. And right over here with this thatch roof is the Jurassic Park store. It's kind of the general store for all of Jurassic Park. And you got to kind of get the mindset that Jurassic Park is really a theme park within a theme park. So, and it's not unlike the others in a sense that, you know, all the people you'll encounter here, all the employees and stuff will all be dressed, in this case, kind of like park rangers, and totally different than what you see over here, totally different than what you see over here. Completely different environment. We kind of immerse you into Jurassic Park, and just like on the other islands, you'll be in that experience for whatever duration you wind up staying there, but certainly a couple hours worth of stuff. Next to Discovery Center is going to be a really amazing attraction called the Triceratops Encounter. And what we're doing here is actually building a living, breathing Triceratops. In the case of this attraction, there'll be 4 different Triceratops. They're all located in a paddock. And the story here is that you're being taken back to the veterinary station of Jurassic Park. This is where the animals are treated, they're taken care of, they get their physical checkups, and you're going to get to experience part of that. So as you wind through this, the queue, you're told different parts of how that unfolds, how they feed the animals, how they care for them, how they monitor Jurassic Park from a security standpoint. And ultimately you find yourself in a little paddock with a veterinarian who is telling you about these animals and the amazing process of how they were developed, and you get to stand face to face with a living, breathing Triceratops. And I say living, breathing because you're actually going to see the eye movements. You'll be able to see the pupil of this animal's eye open and close as you get closer. When they open the door, the animal kind of turns his head and reacts to light, reacts to noise. You can feel the warm skin of the animal, feel the hot breath, and it's really a pretty amazing creature. The animal will be able to respond to the stimuli created in the room. So if you do not pay attention to the signage and you flash a flash bulb in the room, the animal will react in kind of a negative way to that. And if you're loud and obnoxious, the animal will react that way. If you're real kind and friendly, the animal will become much more approachable. So it's completely, it's just going to be an amazing experience. No one's ever attempted to bring people this close to animation before. And we are talking about this far away from a giant, closer than you get to an animal in a zoo for most parts. So very, very challenging piece of work to do, but really going to be a terrific experience when we're done. Across the way from that is the entrance to the river ride, and kind of that little cone-shaped building over there. And in the river ride, similar ride to what we have in Los Angeles, some minor changes. The river ride, you wind through the queue. You're told the story about John Hammond's creation of Jurassic Park, and how this particular ride is going to introduce you to a variety of different dinosaurs. You load onto a boat that's a 40-passenger vessel, and you're brought up to the upper lagoon. And as you're brought up to the upper lagoon, you wind through this really wonderful tropical environment, and you pass through these gates, and before you in the gates is a full mature ultrasaur. It's about a 35-foot high dinosaur, and she sees you come into the lagoon where she is, and she sort of nods her head down, and she looks kind of at your boat. And they're pretty calm animals and pretty friendly, so she just goes back about her business and dips her head down and starts chomping on some grass. And you pass through her, and you see a couple little shiitake who are eating in the brush next door. You get through that little rocky area, and you wind through the rocky area, and you encounter a mama stegosaur and her baby who's across the way. And that's kind of not a good place to be, is between a mommy and her baby when the baby's up on the rocks. So the mom kind of reacts a little bit negatively to you being there, and she sort of lets out a big hoot, and her tail just barely goes by your head. And mind you, a stegosaur's tail is the back end of it, has these giant spikes on it, and that just goes right over your head, and you narrowly are hit by that. But she's not, she's cool. And you wind your way around that, and as you go into the next area, you see the guy with the big horn on top of his head. He's sitting down in the water, and he sees you come into the scene, and he drops down into the water. These guys can go underwater. He drops down into the water, and your boat passes over the top, and as your boat passes over the top, you kind of hit his horn as he passes underneath you, hits the bottom of the boat, and you feel that. And you turn, you're going straight ahead, and all of a sudden this full-blown Perry jumps out of the water and sends the boat carrying off course, and you carry him off course, and you wind up going down a maintenance chute that you're not supposed to be on. Now, you've clearly been taken off the route you're going, because all this while you've been hearing the wonderful music, you've been hearing the narration, and they're telling you all about these wonderful animals, the stegosaur, the Perry, the ultrasaur, and now all of a sudden, boom, you're bumped off course, you're clearly behind a place where you shouldn't be, and you're in a very industrial environment. You pass by one of the raptor cages, and you hear a bunch of rattling going on in the raptor cage, and you quickly discover that things are not what they should be. As you turn around the next, you see one of the supply boats has been ransacked, and you make another turn, and there is overhead a raptor cage that has been deserted. There's a raptor up in the cage, and the cage is bouncing around. You pass right underneath that. There's no way to turn your boat around because you're in this processing plant where you're being taken up to the boat maintenance building. And you start up this lift, and as you start up the lift, you see a guard shack on your left, like a little control booth. And in the video of the control booth, they're just kind of flashing images that there's clearly something wrong here, that gate number 4 is down, the electricity's gone off, boom, the power goes out, you're in almost total darkness going up this ramp, and as you go up this ramp, all of a sudden you see these scurrying shadows going through the environment as you're going up this ramp. About halfway up the ramp, coming right through an electrical panel, is a raptor who grabs onto the cage. Fortunately, you're inside a protective chain link area, and you're going up this ramp. The raptor tries to attack you there. You get to the top of this thing. You see now that the control booth at the top of the lift, the glass is shattered. There's nobody in there. There's a big image on there that all the lights are flashing on and off. There's clearly trouble. And out of the inside of this thing jumps this raptor who's scary as hell. He comes flying right out into the glass. He's all gnarly looking. Tries to take a swipe at you, misses. You're inside in this area where it's all very industrial kind of environment. You round the corner in there, and you can see that something has smashed through a giant garage door up on this top and has almost, left this impression of a giant animal is up in this area where you are. Not a place you want to be. And you encounter a couple more raptors that try to get you. The spitters jump up, they spit at you, and ultimately you're come face to face with this busted up pipe thing. You look like you're going to crash right into it. Through the pipe comes T-Rex in that image right there. T-Rex comes within a few inches of your boat. You're about to go right into the jaws of T-Rex when your boat pitches down and you drop down 81 feet in the steepest, fastest drop ever built. You crash down into the water below, narrowly escaping the jaws of the T-Rex, splash down with an absolutely gigantic splash at the bottom of it, and ultimately come over here and offload, and you can pick up a picture of yourself in that experience here and work your way out back into the retail. It's going to be a really terrific ride. Across the way from that is an attraction we call Camp Jurassic. This is a 60,000 square foot kids play area. It's all that right around there. And that green thing you see wrapping around the outside of it that's the Pteranodon Flyer, and this is a 2-seat gravity roller coaster. And on the what happens here is you get lifted up. You're in the claws of a pteranodon, and this is a really cool soaring coaster. It's going to be a thrill ride, but it'll be kind of a gradual soaring kind of experience. You'll soar to the outside, and you wrap all the way around that Camp Jurassic. And camp is a really interactive burn-off steam kind of environment. There's a volcano where you can go in and look at amber and the insects, and you run around and all these different things. Those palapas over there are places where you can get up high and look through binoculars around Jurassic Park. Great place for kids to interact with water and climbing and running and all those good things. You come out around there and you circulate around the backside of Camp Jurassic, and those 2 palapas are a restaurant we call Thunder Falls. And that's a place where it's really kind of a nice buffeteria type restaurant overlooking the splashdown of the ride. You come out of there and you come to the exit arch, which is kind of the same as the entrance arch, the big gateways of Jurassic Park. And boom, you go through there and you're into Toon Lagoon. Totally different, total juxtaposition of color, scale, architecture, and environment, completely different place. And we're looking up at this kind of funky looking structure over here, which is Dudley Do-Right's Ripsaw Falls. And here's a place where we get to meet Dudley Do-Right, Nell, Inspector Fenwick, Horse, and Snidely Whiplash, of course. But the magic of this ride is really, it's a flume ride, and it's really the first time anybody's attempted to drop a flume ride below the surface of the water. So we take you into this attraction, we give you a typical story. Dudley's always an idiot. Nell's always in trouble, but she's really the star of the show. Snidely is always after Nell. Inspector Fenwick is doing whatever Inspector Fenwick does, and Horse, of course, is the hero. So we kind of wind you through that the whole story. Great animated characters, 3-dimensional animation in this ride. You encounter all these different scenes of these different things happening, and the story unfolds as you go up the flume ride. But of course, you get to the top of the flume ride, and Dudley has once again bundled the operation, and he hits the wrong switch and sends you catapulting over the edge, plunging 75 feet down. But of course, on the way down, at about 60 feet, we've sent you off this very steep flume, and at about 2/3 of the way down, we steepen it. So what happens as an effect of that, or as a result of that, is that you kind of come out of your seat, and as you come out of your seat, you crash into the roof of this TNT shack. The TNT shack explodes, and you continue to go another 15 feet below the surface of the water. And as you go below the surface of the water, you kind of come racing out in darkness, and those planks will all be clattering as the boat passes underneath them. So the people on the outside have seen you drop in, disappear under the surface of the water. The planks go clanking, and the boat comes shooting out the end of the planks and then races down the rapids, and you roll around the outside of the attraction, and ultimately you come to the final scene where Snidely's imprisoned, and of course Dudley is taking credit for what he doesn't deserve. Horse is the hero, and so on. So that'll be a real fun attraction. You get out of that attraction, come around here, and this whole street right here is this a walk through the Sunday Funnies. We've taken the Sunday Funnies and we've just exploded them into 3 dimensions and created a really wonderful interactive retail, food, comic strip environment that happens all in this area right here. Across the way from that is Popeye and Bluto's Bilge Rat Ride. And what happens here is you get to hear the story of Popeye and Bluto and how they're kind of battling over this barge business. And of course, Bluto is trying to not only steal Popeye's girlfriend, but steal his business. And this is a river rapids ride, a really dynamic river rapids experience wrapped around the story of Popeye and Bluto. And you roll around this thing, high-speed rapids. You'll get very wet on this ride. And you come around to the back in here, and this guy right here is Popeye's boat, the Olive, and it's a children's interactive playground. But while you're passing down here in the boat, there are little water cannons on that playground, so people get to shoot at you with water cannons as you go by on the boat. You wrap around here, you encounter an octopus underneath this grotto. Ultimately, Popeye is ready to do battle with Bluto. You wind up getting out of that, and you go up into this structure here, which is a boat wash from the barge business. And you go into the boat wash, and it's kind of like sending people through a car wash. They'll go up through this thing, water spritzes, brushes going all over the place. And what we do at the top of this ride is we have a little bit of misdirection, then we drop the boat out the side of this ride, and you plunge about 20-some feet in this round vessel, splash down into the water, and ultimately find your way back to the offload. So it'll be a real fun river ride based on these great characters. So we come out of that. Here's a place where you can get a Wimpy's hamburger. They're more than a nickel, and you have to pay for them every day, not just on Tuesday when you come here. So you go down that street. At the end of the street is the Comic Strip Cafe. That's kind of a place where you can find the comic strip characters eating. It's sort of a hard rock kind of environment, you know, high energy, based on comic strip properties of all the King features and the Tribune features and some miscellaneous characters. Coming to that area, and this little triangular shaped building is a 1,750-seat amphitheater. When we open, we'll base that on cartoon properties. This will be a real fun sing and dance with all the comic strip characters have all come together, and there's kind of a musical review, all original music and character dancing, and really kind of a fun show. So we come out of that and we cross over into the Marvel Universe. Totally different kind of environment once again. Come into the Marvel Universe and you're inside. As soon as you walk into this place, you're smack dab in the middle of the battle between good and evil. You've got superheroes and villains fighting across the street. There's all these big giant graphic images of all the superheroes in battle and action scenes. Some of them are down at the ground level so you can get your picture taken with them. Others are up on the buildings in different kind of action scenes. You'll encounter the actual characters in this environment as you work your way around. There's an ice cream stand over here. There's a comic book shop over here. This is the Captain America diner, based on Captain America, of course. And you'll go around this environment here. There's a little ice cream stand. And ultimately you come to this tall building here, which is the Daily Bugle. And you enter into the Daily Bugle and you wind up going kind of around the back of the building in the queue, and you are really kind of circulating around the loading dock of the Bugle. You see all these stacks of headlines, and this kind of story starts to unfold that the Sinister Six are on the loose. And the Sinister Six is a group of supervillains. They're on the loose. You start seeing all these different characters like Doc Ock and the Hobgoblin and the female symbiote. And as you go, each one of them's got a headline from some dastardly deed they did at some point in time. And you get to learn a little bit about those characters as you wind your way through. Ultimately, you find your way back in the lobby of the Daily Bugle, and you work your way back through the offices of the newspaper. And you'll see Peter Parker's office. You'll see Peter Parker's dark room. And again, you start to see references of what is really going on here. Ultimately, you wind your way back, and you come into sort of like the CNN newsroom kind of format. Big kind of high-tech newsroom. And on the screen is J. Jonah Jameson ranting and raving about everybody's out covering this story. There's no one left around to really get to the task. He needs to solicit you guys to help him take his new vehicle, the Scoop reporting vehicle, out into the city and try and help Spider-Man track down. Actually, he doesn't tell you to help Spider-Man because he doesn't really like Spider-Man. He wants to beat Spider-Man to the punch and really capture the Sinister Six, because they've developed this anti-gravity device, and not only have they stolen the Statue of Liberty, but of course they plan to take over the world. You get on the vehicle, and Spider-Man is an attraction that combines everything we learned about Back to the Future, everything we learned in T2, and some of the thrills and movement through sets that we figured out in Kong. Takes all those technologies, winds them together to create an attraction that's going to be like no other attraction around. This is a moving motion-based simulator that not just sits in one place and moves around, but actually moves through show scenes in a linear format, you know, kind of wraps around these things. And the motion base reacts to a constantly changing 3D filmatic environment. So as you go into these scenes, these 3D images are in these scenes. You have, of course, have on your safety goggles, and you go into these scenes and you interact with the supervillains and with Spider-Man. The first thing that happens is you wind through the scene, you see the image of Spidey's shadow going from building to building, and you come out to the scene and Spider-Man lands right on your vehicle. And when he lands on your vehicle kind of lurches forward, and there's Spidey sitting right on your vehicle. And he says to you, "Hey, what are you guys doing here? All right, well, now that you're here, you go that way, I'm going to go this way, and we'll see if we can find these guys." So you take off, Spidey jumps out of the scene, you wrap around, and the next thing that happens is you come in contact with a garbage truck. You're down an alley and a garbage truck almost hits you, sends you flying through some doors into a warehouse. And you get into this warehouse and you hear, off in the distance, you can hear these guys sort of plotting to take over the world. With this anti-gravity gun, we'll take over the world. Pretty good impersonation of Doc Ock. And you ultimately come into the warehouse scene and you see these guys. There's like 5 of them hanging around the Statue of Liberty, and the guy's got the anti-gravity gun, and he's picked up the torch of the Statue of Liberty, and they're going through this whole story. So you figure, well, we got to get the heck out of here. And your vehicle turns around, and next thing you know, you encounter Electro, who discovers you're inside their hideout, and he's like, what are you doing here? Well, now that you're here, he picks up this big ball of electricity, and he throws this ball of electricity at you, and it hits your vehicle, sends your vehicle spinning out of control. You smash down the sewer. I can take you through all these shows. You smash down the sewer, you come flying out of the sewer, and you encounter Doc Ock, who crashes through a wall. He grabs your vehicle's spinning out in reverse. He's pulling your vehicle in. I'm going to get you guys. And your vehicle finally breaks loose. Doc Ock standing there holding the bumper. Now, I'm not describing to you which part's film and which part's real, because you won't be able to tell the difference. Some of it's real, some of it's film. It's all totally immersed you in this environment. You race out of there. Ultimately, you get through about 4 or 5 of these different encounters with the villains. Spider-Man jumps back into the scene. He's like, geez, you guys picked a fine night to go crime fighting. Ultimately, you get into a final scene. There's a heck of a battle at the end of this thing. They levitate your vehicle, take you up to 40 stories above the city. You're hovering over the rooftops, and Spidey's in combat with these guys trying to save you. And ultimately, one of the villains says, that's it for you guys. I can't get Spider-Man, but I sure can get you. He turns off the anti-gravity gun, and we go plunging 40 stories down into the street. And right before we hit the street, Spidey sends a web in, catches the vehicle, and the vehicle kind of bounces a few feet above the ground. We get out. Spidey has wrapped up the villains, and they're hanging over there. He takes your picture, and you make it back. We come back through, that's it, just that. We come back out of that ride, and there's a little retail thing, and the next thing we come down to is this alleyway over here. And this alleyway it's like 42nd Street taken over by the villains. So it's really run down. It's got all their sort of their techno devices all over the place. You pass through this portal, that's these 2 big claws, and you walk down there, and at the end of that are those 2 towers, and that's Dr. Doom's Fearfall. And Dr. Doom is the archenemy of the Fantastic Four. And so what this thing is, it's a machine that he's built in an effort to ultimately do away with the Fantastic Four. But of course, he needs your help in doing that, because how he powers this thing is he powers it with fear. So what he does is he's going to take you, he's going to put you in this device, he's going to suck the fear out of you, and once he gets enough fear, he's going to go after the Fantastic Four and destroy them forever. These villains are really something else. You get down to the bottom of this thing, and you, of course, meet Dr. Doom, who explains what the heck he's going to do to you. You ultimately wind up through that space, and you get into a compartment. And you can see these towers are 4-sided, and you can kind of see it here. Each of those little blue things is 4 seats, and each one has 1, 2, 3, 4 from the Fantastic Four on it. And they load you into this compartment. The door closes, and as the door closes, you see the image of Dr. Doom on the face of this chamber that you're in, and boom, in a second, you're shot up to 150 feet above the ground. And of course, that's not good enough, so once we have you up at 150 feet, we force you back down faster than gravity, back down to the ground. And once again, you've survived that. You come out of that, and you're in the 2nd floor of the Doom arcade, which is this guy right in here. And that's a big electronic game arcade. And you come down into that space, play around with the games, and adjacent to that, there's a big blown-out hole in the wall. And the big blowout hole in the wall takes you into the Fantastic Four Cafe. And so all that whole thing is all kind of wound together. You got a ride, you got a games arcade, and a restaurant, all based on Dr. Doom, the Fantastic Four, Kingpin, and that whole group of characters all relating to each other. Across the way is the Marvel Alterniverse. That's a big store for the Marvel product. And then you go down to this next area here, and this next area is sort of a industrial research institute kind of looking place. And at the end of it is this big bunker where you go into the queue, and inside the queue, the whole story of Bruce Banner's life and his research with gamma ray work unfolds for you. And it's kind of neat. It's a real high energy multimedia experience. It's got video and audio as you walk through this big volume space. But the neat thing about it is, as you're walking through the space, you're starting to hear little entries into his daily journal. So the first couple minutes you're in the queue, you may hear beginning work with gamma ray research, really unsure where this is going to lead, day 2, a little bit further down the story. Ultimately, you get up into the load area, and it's Banner once again on his last entry to his journal saying that it's now time to actually load into the chamber. I'm going to load myself into the chamber. I don't know what this is going to, what's really going to happen, but if I'm successful, it will change mankind for the good forever. You load into this chamber, and the vehicle takes you up a little ways into this chamber, and Banner comes on the thing. He hits the switch. The chamber turns bright green. You're zapped with gamma rays, and you go catapulting out of this thing at a speed of 0 to 42 miles per hour in 2 seconds. So that's equivalent to about a G of force. Also equivalent to about the speed of a fuel funny car. Shoots you out 150 feet in the air. Now, I've ridden this thing when we mocked it up, and we never got it. We didn't attempt to. We were just kind of seeing what our tolerance would be. And we rode it about half as fast as we're actually going to ride it. And it'll really get your attention. We only rode the lift part of it. We didn't ride the part where we turn you upside down in a 0G roll at 150 feet above the ground, which is this right here, which has never been done before. No one's ever shot you out of a cannon into a move. He shot you out and they drop you, but no one's ever attempted to shoot you out not only at the speed, but into a 0G roll. So we 0G roll you at the top of this thing, 150 feet above your family and friends that don't have the guts to ride it. And you come racing down here at about 60 miles an hour, 4 feet above the water. You go skitching across the water into a boomerang right here on the lagoon. Sends you down. You go into a 109-foot inversion down below the bridge, and then you wrap around the gun. And then you do this really cool move out here, which is sort of a double reverse. That little guy right there turns you upside down and inside out. Shoots you back out into the back end of the coaster. Totally, it's like 6 different inversions. High speed, very smooth ride with a really strong finish. So we come out of that, we wrap over this bridge, and we come back into the port of entry. We exit down the port of entry. There's a big retail store. There's retail and food, and on your way out, you get back to the turnstiles. It's been about 8.5 hours. Oh yeah, I left out a couple things. There's a nightly lagoon show, and we can gather about 15,000 to 16,000 people along the edge of each of the islands. You can kind of see how each of the islands comes down to the water. Those places are all designed to tier people, 3 or 4 layers of people for a nightly lagoon show. The other thing I didn't mention is that there are several different environmental theatrical performances that happen. In Seuss, there's a really great little show with some of the Seuss characters. Wherever we have characters, there'll be a lot of characters interacting with the kids in the streets. So there's a big show in Seuss, that's a street show. There's a big show in Superhero where the X-Men come out and you're introduced to the X-Men and what their capabilities are. And then you get a chance to be, it's kind of a recruiting exercise for the X-Men. You get to experience some of that. So that happens, the Lagoon Show happens. Great music, great food, and it's really going to be quite a place.